Is this lighting getting worse because I'm filming November's intro the same morning that I filmed October's outro? The answer is yes. Hello and welcome to my craft room. I'm Adrian, I am the Freakish Lemon. I use masculine pronouns, and this heating vent right by my feet is just so warm. I have changed out of casual winter soldier because that arm was getting uncomfortably warm, but I am wearing my schmancy Halloween shirt that I made last year. This is a black cotton that I absolutely hate because it's very shifty and doesn't like to stay put. It is top stitched. I don't know if the camera will pick that up. In purple thread. Collar and cuffs are in orange bug fabric that I picked up at Affordable Fabrics, where everything's $2.99 a yard. Not everything. Most of the fabrics are $2.99 a yard. Upholstery gets a little more expensive. Also, none of my buttons match. Every single button on here is a different color, which is probably my favorite detail about this shirt because I love mismatching buttons. I don't know why that pleases me so much, but it does. Right, it's the start of the month. Before we get to the board, just remember that if you want to follow along with what I am doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button down below. That's the best way to find out when I have new videos available. That's the end of that. I don't know why I thought I was going to go into more of a spiel, but I guess we'll just move on to the board. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to erase the Rhinebeck sweater because that is complete. We can also erase the Christmas sweater deadline because that is actively being worked on under the to-do column at the moment. So we're also going to erase Salazar Slytherin, move him upwards, and clean that up. You can also see I've added on third item, cast on hose. Most sources say that hose in the medieval period were woven, cut on the bias, sewed together. I did not want to faff around with that. I am a knitter, and I'm much more likely to use knee-high, thigh-high, hand-knit socks than I am sewn on the bias hose. So, I'm going to knit my hose. That's not technically historically accurate, since the earliest known sample of knitting in Europe was dated to, I think, the 12th century. But I recall reading somewhere, and I don't have sources for this, so whatever, don't at me, that there were samples of knitting found in the Middle East as early as the 8th century. It very well could be that we don't have any earlier samples of knitting in Europe simply because they did not survive. Wool degrades over time, and unless it's being preserved in very specific ways, it's not going to last thousands of years. That's just fact. I will not be using any purl stitches, since there is evidence that purl stitches were not really in use until later dates. I don't believe they used purl stitches in the 16th century, so it's a while before we get examples of things with purl stitches in them. So it's just going to be knit as you do. The heels are likely not going to be historically accurate because I haven't really done that much research in how historical knitted things have been made. I'm going to use an afterthought heel in my hose, simply because that's the best fitting heel for me doing a toe-up sock. Top down, I like to do whenever possible, if it doesn't interrupt self-striping. Heel flap and gusset, because that fits my foot the best, but we'll do an afterthought heel doing toe-up, because we're going to do toe-up for hose, because they go on forever. I'm not knitting that top down. Back to the board, I'm going to scooch my dye stuff a little further up so it's not encroaching upon the jelly roll rug there. You know what? For the time being, we're going to erase the jelly roll rug off there since I'm not actively working on it. I'll redraw this thing later when I have my hands on that project again. Again, my lighting is terrible and it makes this a little bit hard to see, but under dye I have marigolds and the madder dye for the silk pieces for an 18th century men's shirt wearable mock-up thing. Now over to the to-do column. Quilting now gets to have only 2 bullet points underneath it, assemble and bind, which is very exciting. Also, the black vest mock-up gets moved up because I might actually work on it this month. And I'm moving up the Christmas sweater and the 2 sleeve bullet points to get that done really as soon as possible. Those are all my planned things for November. The list is looking a little bit short now, which is actually pretty exciting because I started the board to really keep track of things that I was not finishing because I kept forgetting they were there. So I'm finishing up a lot of long-term things right now, which is very satisfying, getting towards the end of 2020. That's gonna do it for this intro section of the video. Enjoy the montage bit in the middle, and I'll see you at the end of November for the wrap-up of things that I've managed to get done. welcome to the end of November and the end of this video. Let's go over the board and see how I did this month. I have one thing crossed off for Salazar Slytherin. I have officially cast on the hose. Those are probably not going to be finished until the end of next year because they are long, and I'm trying to finish up some other knitting or crochet projects in the meantime, but they are cast on, which means they are in progress, which was all I was really hoping for by this point in the year. Obviously, I need to finish the secondary dye samples, and I need to finish up the braise. I'm done with the main part of the braise, but I need to add some height to the waistband and deal with the drawstrings. So it's likely going to be finished by the end of this year, which is good. I just need to make sure that I schedule time to sit down and work on them. I've added Christmas sweater back to this column here because I finished the machine knitting, so it's no longer in the craft room. It is now in my knitting spot so that I can knit all the color work. I have done the front piece, which is not the best. I'm a little out of practice with color work, but whatever. It's a Christmas Star Wars sweater. And I'm on the second sleeve. So long as I keep making time to work on it, I should, cross your fingers, get that done by Christmas. The dye column is unchanged. I was not doing any dyeing this month because of the quilt, which if we go over to the to-do column, the quilt is in fact done. I finished the quilt November 30th. Filming this December 1st. I finished this quilt yesterday. That is a really satisfying thing to cross off. It has been in my works in progress for literal years. It was good that I was focused on getting it done, but it also meant that it kind of hindered getting some other things done in the craft room because it was fully assembled and I was doing the finishing touches. It's at least a full size, maybe a queen, I'm not entirely sure, but it is a large quilt. Because the quilt is so big and it takes up so much space while I'm working on it, I cannot have anything else in the craft room that may risk staining or damaging it. So no dyeing whatsoever, which I knew was likely. I wasn't going to do any dyeing until I finished the quilt. But that also meant nothing with ink at all. Water only. I am clumsy. I was not risking it. I'm not going to show you the finished quilt now because it is a gift. I do have to mail it out to the recipient. I will take a lot of photos and I will post them up on Instagram sometime in the new year. So follow me at freakishlemon if you want to check that out. Links in the down bar. No change to the black vest mock-up bullet point, but I did pull it out and do a couple of things. I'm experimenting with lining my mock-up with some canvas that I have to see what kind of stiffening that provides. I don't know if it's going to be too stiff. It's an experiment. That stuff is left over from several projects at this point, so I just want to see how this will work as an interlining layer type thing for a vest waistcoat situation. But that's really all I've managed to do just because it was Quilt City down here and I just needed something to take my brain off the quilt in the middle of the month. As I said before, the Christmas sweater is complete in the machine knitting portions. Down here I had added mend PJs. I found 3 sets of pajama bottoms in my mending pile that needed new waistbands or needed new elastic. In the middle of the month when I needed a break from the quilt, I took out that mending and got those 3 things taken care of just to keep my momentum of being down in the craft room and sewing almost every day. And then you can see just a reminder for myself to oil my Singer sewing machine. That Singer sewing machine just finished a quilt, which means at the very least it needs oiling. It probably needs a clean too, but I want to do a little bit of scrap quilting with it while that needle still is okay. And that's really it for structured projects. Everything else that I'm working on is knitting, crochet, spinning, which are all things that take me a lot longer and often don't show that much progress from month to month, depending on how I've been focusing. Hopefully once I get some more long-term works in progress off of my needles and hooks and all that sorted out, we can add some more things to the board to keep track of here, but for the meantime, those are just slow and steady. I'll get to it when I get to it because they're not deadline things. So that's really gonna do it for me for this episode. Just remember, if you want to follow along with this thing that I'm doing, consider hitting that subscribe button. Feel free to leave a comment or like this video. It helps with the algorithm, I guess. Links and show notes are below. I don't remember if I've even said that before, but they are. They're there. And that's it. Goodbye.